speaking so loudly that you almost miss the sound of provision. You have been trying to smile while your mind calculates everything. Bills, deadlines, promises, empty spaces. You wake up with pressure before your feet touch the floor. And even when no one asks what is wrong, your body is already answering. The weight is real, the fear is loud, but it is not the final voice. You are not watching this by accident. You are not here because the world felt kind. You are here because heaven interrupted a cycle that was getting too familiar. The cycle of checking, stressing, waiting, refreshing, wondering, and asking why nothing seems to move when you have already prayed more than once. Chosen one, I need you to hear this slowly. The pressure around your life is not proof that God forgot you. The delay around your provision is not proof that your prayers were rejected. Sometimes the noise gets loudest right before the answer begins to take shape, in a way your fear cannot recognize yet. You have carried a private kind of exhaustion. Not just tiredness, not just stress. It is the kind of exhaustion that comes from feeling responsible for everyone and everything, while still wondering who is responsible for you. You help others breathe. But when night comes, you are the one gasping in silence. You have looked at your account and felt your spirit sink. You have opened messages and felt your stomach tighten. You have said, I trust God. But then the next thought came fast and sharp. How will this work? When will it happen? What if I run out of time? What if I miss my chance? There is a reason your worry has been so intense lately. It is not random. It is not ordinary stress. Your spirit has sensed movement before your circumstances could show proof. Something in you knows a shift is near, but because your body remembers seasons of lack, it keeps preparing for disaster instead of receiving instruction. That is why you feel pulled in two directions. One part of you knows God will not leave you uncovered. Another part of you keeps scanning the ground for evidence of failure. You want peace, but your nervous system keeps asking for a receipt. You want faith, but your past keeps interrupting the prayer. You have been faithful in places where nobody clapped. You stayed when leaving would have been easier. You gave when your own cup was not full. You comforted people while secretly needing comfort. And you kept showing up even when your private world felt like it was held together by one thin thread. That is why this message had to find you now. Not later. Not after the panic swallowed another week. Not after you made a decision from fear and called it wisdom. Heaven is placing a pause between you and the old reaction, because your next move cannot be made from the energy of lack. Chosen one, God is not asking you to pretend the pressure is not there. He is asking you to stop letting pressure become your prophet. Fear can predict disaster, but it cannot perceive provision. Panic can count what is missing, but it cannot recognize what heaven has already assigned to your name. You have been looking for the answer in the same place the problem wounded you. You looked at the shortage and asked it to define your future. You looked at the delay and asked it to explain your worth. But the shortage is not your source, and the delay is not your identity. But you have to understand something. God funding your life does not always look like money falling into your hand first. Sometimes it looks like clarity. Sometimes it looks like a person remembering your name. Sometimes it looks like one idea, one instruction, one unexpected conversation, one closed door that saves you from a costly mistake. This is why worry is so dangerous for a chosen one. It does not just make you uncomfortable. It distorts interpretation. It makes protection look like rejection. It makes preparation look like punishment. It makes a narrow door look like no door at all. You have been asking for provision, but heaven has also been asking for your attention. Not the attention you give while your mind is divided. Not the attention you give while panic runs in the background. God has been calling you into stillness, because the next instruction is quiet. This is the part many people miss. They think funding means the visible resource appears first. But for those who are chosen, provision often begins as divine direction. The resource follows the instruction. The open door follows the alignment. The supply follows the step that fear told you not to take. That is why you cannot afford to keep calling your worry wisdom. Some of the decisions you almost made were not discernment. They were exhaustion wearing a spiritual mask. They were old survival patterns, trying to protect you from pain by keeping you smaller than your assignment. But I need you to stay present. Do not let your mind run ahead to tomorrow while heaven is speaking to you now. The enemy wants you to leave this moment and return to mental noise, because the longer you stay anchored, the more his voice loses authority over your provision. You have done that before. Be honest with yourself. God sent a small sign, and you dismissed it because you wanted a dramatic rescue. He sent a quiet nudge, and you ignored it because your fear demanded a louder answer. He sent rest, but you kept calling rest irresponsible. That season is ending, not because you suddenly understand everything, not because every number has changed yet. It is ending because heaven is correcting the place inside you that learned to obey fear faster than faith. And once that place is corrected, your eyes will open to what was already moving. You need to see it with spiritual sight. You need to see that God has not been absent. You need to see that the funding of your life is not just about survival money. It is about heaven backing the assignment you were born to carry. You were never meant to live permanently in scramble mode. You were never meant to treat every blessing like it might disappear by morning. You were never meant to hold your breath every time life required trust. That is trauma speaking, not heaven. And God is gentle with the wounded place. He is not mocking the fear that grew out of real battles, but he is also too faithful to let that fear become your master. He will comfort you, and then he will call you higher, because comfort without correction would leave you in the same cage. So let this first part do its work. Let it slow your breathing. Let it interrupt the inner storm. Let it remind you that your provision is not hanging by a thread. It is held by the one who called you before people knew how to value you. You are not begging heaven to notice you. You are not pleading with a closed sky. You are being trained to receive from a place of alignment instead of panic. And that is why this message must go deeper than temporary relief. Stay with me, because in the next part, I am going to show you why the pressure got louder after you prayed. And once you understand that, you will stop mistaking the sound of warfare for the absence of provision. Chosen one, the pressure got louder after you prayed because something heard you. Heaven heard you, but so did every force assigned to keep you in survival. That is why the battle did not always get easier after your faith rose. Sometimes the enemy increases noise when he cannot cancel the answer. You thought the pressure meant prayer failed. It did not. You thought the delay meant the door closed. It did not. Many times the delay is where God breaks your addiction to panic. Because if he funds your life, while fear still rules your interpretation, fear will take credit for what grace provided. This is the reframe you need. Lack is not your identity. Pressure is not your prophecy. A low number is not a final sentence. And the heaviness you have felt is not always a sign that nothing is moving, because sometimes your spirit feels the weight of a door before your hands can touch the handle. Let me be honest with you early, because I do not want this message to feel mysterious in the wrong way. Some of what you are fighting is spiritual, but some of it also touches the state of the mind. When worry takes over, clarity becomes harder to hear, and a chosen one can mistake divine instruction for random thought. There is a restoration tool called the Genius Song. It is a 7-minute digital audio track built around brain entrainment and gamma reactivation. I will explain the full picture later, when your heart is ready to understand why it matters. For now, just remember this. If your spirit feels a quiet pull, the verified link is in the description and pinned comment. But do not rush away from the revelation. The tool is not the center of this message. The center is what God is doing inside you, because provision can arrive and still be missed by a mind that has been trained to expect loss. Heaven is not only sending resources, Heaven is restoring your ability to recognize them. That is why this part matters. You are not just being told to stop worrying so you can feel better. You are being called out of a frequency that has been misreading your life. Worry has been translating every delay as abandonment, every quiet day as punishment, and every unfinished promise as proof that you were foolish to believe. But God is not punishing your belief. He is purifying it. He is removing the version of faith that only breathes when the bank account looks safe. He is building the kind of faith that can receive instruction before evidence, because the chosen are often funded through obedience before they are funded through visible supply. Think about the pattern of your life. The biggest doors did not always open when you felt ready. They opened when you finally became still enough to obey one small step, one message, one application, one apology, one exit, one call, one decision you almost dismissed because it looked too simple. The enemy wants you obsessed with the amount. God wants you attentive to the instruction. The enemy wants you staring at what is missing. God wants you watching what is forming. The enemy wants you counting down in fear, because he knows a fearful mind rarely notices the small key placed right in front of it. That key may not look impressive at first. It may look like rest. It may look like waiting. It may look like turning down an offer that seems useful but carries confusion. It may look like contacting someone you have been avoiding, or saying no to someone who keeps draining the oil meant for your lamp. This is where many chosen ones get tested. They pray for funding, then panic when God first sends correction. They pray for provision, then resist the instruction that would protect it. They ask for overflow, but still carry habits built for famine. They ask to be trusted with more, but still let fear manage the little. Do not hear this as shame. Hear it as freedom. God is not exposing you to embarrass you. He is exposing the pattern so it can no longer eat your harvest. You have been loyal to survival, because survival once kept you alive, but now, survival is too small to manage the blessing that is coming. A person who has only known shortage often flinches when abundance comes near. They question good news, they distrust sudden help, they overthink open doors, and when God begins to fund the next season, they may call it too good to be true, because their past taught them that relief always comes with a hidden cost. But this time is different. Not because life has no responsibility, not because wisdom no longer matters. This time is different, because God is healing the lens through which you read responsibility. You are not being asked to be reckless. You are being asked to stop calling fear a strategy. There is a holy difference between stewardship and worry. Stewardship listens, worry spirals. Stewardship prepares, worry panics. Stewardship asks God for the next step. Worry demands the full map before it will move. And chosen one, your next season will require stewardship, not the old storm inside your chest. God is not angry that you felt afraid. He knows what you have survived. He knows every bill that made your hands shake. He knows every night you lay awake, trying to look strong in the morning. He knows the private conversations where you asked if you had done something wrong. That does not mean every desire is funded. It means every assignment is supported. It means God will not ask you to carry a mantle and then abandon you without oil. It means the provision may not always arrive according to your emotional deadline, but it will arrive with divine intelligence. This is why you must stop making fear your interpreter. Fear will tell you the quiet means no. Fear will tell you the wait means never. Fear will tell you the closed door means humiliation. But faith, when it is clear, can look at the same closed door and say, God just saved me from a trap. You know this has already happened. You almost accepted something that did not feel clean. You almost returned to a door that drained you. You almost explained yourself to people who benefit from your confusion. You almost made a decision just to stop the discomfort, not because God told you to move. That is why heaven interrupted you. God is funding your life. but he is also protecting the channel. He is not going to pour sacred provision into a pattern that hands it to fear, people-pleasing, guilt, or desperation. He is teaching you how to receive without losing yourself again. The funding is not only external, it is internal first. It is peace returning before the proof. It is discernment sharpening before the offer. It is courage rising before the call. It is the strange calm that appears when nothing has fully changed, yet something in you knows God has already signed the order. Chosen one. The next part will take this even deeper. Scripture has already shown this pattern again and again. Before provision appears, God often gives instruction that seems too small, too strange, or too late. Do not miss what comes next, because your answer may already be wrapped in an instruction you have been tempted to ignore. Chosen one. Scripture has never shown provision as panic. It has always shown provision as instruction. God does not lead his people through frantic guessing. He speaks. Then he trains the heart to obey what was spoken, even when the visible supply has not arrived yet. This is why your current season feels strange. You are asking for money, but heaven is dealing with your ears. You are asking for a rescue, but God is restoring your discernment. You are asking for a visible answer, while he is teaching you how to recognize the invisible movement before it becomes evidence. Think about Elijah. The brook did not look like a financial plan. Ravens did not look like a reliable source. A widow with almost nothing did not look like provision. Yet God used what no one would choose, because divine funding often arrives through channels pride would reject and fear would misunderstand. Think about the widow with a little oil. She did not begin with abundance. She began with one small thing in the house. Her miracle was not released by pretending she had no need. It was released when she followed instruction, gathered vessels, and made room for what heaven was ready to multiply. That is why you must stop despising what is already in your hand. A contact can be a vessel. A skill can be a vessel. A quiet idea can be a vessel. A peaceful no can be a vessel. Sometimes God funds your life by showing you what to stop wasting, not only by sending something new. Moses did not see a bank account open in the wilderness. He saw manna, daily bread, enough for the day. Not enough to feed his fear for the next 10 years, but enough to train a whole people out of slavery and into trust. God was not only feeding them, he was rewiring them. You have been tempted to think that if the full amount is not visible, nothing is happening. But heaven often releases provision in sequence. First peace, then instruction, then courage, then confirmation, then one small open door, then another. And suddenly, you realize the answer was not absent, it was unfolding. Joseph had dreams before he had position. David had oil before he had a throne. Ruth had loyalty before she had protection. Esther had favor before she had strategy. None of them looked fully funded at the beginning, yet each one was being carried by a hidden supply line that heaven had already arranged. This is where the enemy attacks chosen ones. He does not always attack the promise directly. He attacks your interpretation of the waiting. He whispers that delay means denial. He whispers that pressure means punishment. He whispers that the silence of people means the silence of God. But the enemy is a liar. He cannot cancel what heaven has assigned. So he tries to make you abandon your posture before provision reaches your hands. He tries to make you spend your strength on worry, because a worried mind becomes too loud to hear a quiet instruction. Even the mind reflects this pattern. When survival signals rise, attention narrows. The body searches for danger. The brain keeps returning to what could go wrong. And when that happens, a person can stand beside an open door and still feel trapped, because fear is shouting louder than discernment. This is why clarity is not a small thing. Clarity is a spiritual weapon. Clarity helps you know which call to return, which offer to refuse, which relationship to stop feeding, and which small step carries unusual peace. A clear mind can notice what a frantic mind keeps walking past. Researchers have studied how higher brain states relate to insight, flow, and sudden understanding. Some call it gamma activity. Spiritual people have felt this as discernment, inner knowing, and the moment when guidance feels clean instead of forced. Different languages, same pattern. Heaven speaks, and the vessel must be clear enough to perceive. That is why your worry is not harmless. It does not just make you sad. It changes what you notice. It makes you replay threats and ignore signals. It makes you doubt the very thought that may have been sent as an answer, because fear trains the mind to distrust anything that feels too peaceful. You are allowed to plan. You are allowed to prepare. You are allowed to be responsible. But you are not allowed to hand the steering wheel of your life to panic, and then call that spiritual maturity. God did not give you a sound mind so fear could rent the throne. This is the hidden blocker. It is not that heaven has no funding for your life. It is that worry has been sitting at the gate, inspecting every blessing before your faith can receive it. Worry asks, is this safe? Is this enough? What if it disappears? What if I am disappointed again? And while worry interrogates every open door, obedience gets delayed. You wait for perfect certainty. You ask for another sign. You replay every possible failure. You keep your hand on the handle but do not turn it, because fear has convinced you that standing still is safer than stepping where God is leading. But standing still can become disobedience when God has already spoken. Waiting can become avoidance when the instruction is clear. Caution can become a costume for unbelief when the same fear keeps postponing the same step. And deep down, you know exactly which step I am talking about. Do not run from that sentence. Let it find you. There is one thing you have been sensing, one quiet instruction that keeps returning, one small move that refuses to leave your spirit alone. It may not look dramatic, but your peace has been pointing toward it longer than your fear wants to admit. Maybe it is the application. Maybe it is the conversation. Maybe it is ending the agreement that drains your strength. Maybe it is building what God showed you in private. Maybe it is resting long enough to hear again, because exhaustion has been making every door look heavier than it is. This is why heaven is confronting worry now. Not to shame you, not to rush you, not to make you reckless. God is removing the voice that has been translating his provision into anxiety, because what is coming cannot be managed by the version of you that needed panic to feel prepared. The next version of you will still be wise, but that version will not be frantic. That version will still count the cost, but that version will not count God out. That version will still move carefully, but carefully does not mean fearfully, and patience does not mean paralysis. I need you to feel the shift. Provision is not only coming toward you, provision is also rising within you as clarity, courage, timing, and clean instruction. Heaven is funding the version of you that can hear, decide, and move without letting old fear poison a new door. Now we have reached the part the enemy hoped you would never hear. Because if you understand what worry has really been doing, you will stop calling it protection. You will see it as interference. And once interference is exposed, it loses the right to govern your next move. Chosen one, now the interference is exposed. Worry was never your protection. It was the noise standing between your spirit and the instruction God already sent. That is why the same fear kept returning every time peace got close. Because fear knew that one calm decision could unlock what panic could never reach. This is what it means when heaven says it is already done. It does not mean you will never face another responsibility. It does not mean wisdom disappears. It means the source has already been assigned, the path has already been prepared, and the next step is waiting for the version of you that can hear without shaking. God is not waiting to fund your life. He is waiting for you to stop letting fear interpret his provision. That sentence is for you. Let it land. Your breakthrough has been closer than your panic allowed you to believe. But panic kept turning every quiet instruction into another reason to hesitate. You have asked for a sign, but God may have already sent direction. You have asked for a miracle, but God may have already sent clarity. You have asked for the full provision, but heaven may be asking you to move through the first door with obedience, instead of demanding the entire staircase before you take one step. This is the sacred correction. Provision is not only what arrives in your hand. Provision is also the peace that stops you from choosing wrong. It is the discernment that saves you from a counterfeit door. It is the courage to stop bleeding energy into people who never intended to honor what you carry. And that is why your mind matters in this season. A foggy mind can misread a blessing. A tired mind can call bondage familiar. A fearful mind can reject the very door God sends, because it does not match the rescue fantasy built by pain. But a clear vessel can hear softly and move strongly. Earlier, I briefly named a restoration tool called the Genius Song. I did not stop the message there, because you needed the revelation first. You needed to understand that the deeper issue is not only money, it is the channel through which you hear, perceive, decide, and receive. The Genius Song is a 7-minute digital audio track created to support gamma reactivation through brain entrainment. In spiritual language, many people describe this as returning to the higher clarity they once felt before life made everything heavy. In scientific language, gamma is often connected with insight, flow, focus, and sudden understanding. Dr. Robert Lake spent 34 years studying the brain and the patterns that separate ordinary thinking from moments of unusual clarity. Research connected to places like Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Princeton, Harvard, and other leading institutions has pointed to the importance of higher brain activity in insight and perception. But hear me carefully. This is not replacing God. This is not replacing prayer. This is not a magic button. It is a simple tool for people who recognize that their spirit may be willing, but their mind has been overloaded by worry, stress, and years of survival noise. That is why it fits this message. Because God may already be funding your life, but if your mind is too clouded to recognize instruction, you can walk past provision while asking why nothing has arrived. The issue is not always absence. Sometimes the issue is reception. A man in his early 50s understood this. He had been without steady work for almost 2 years after his company downsized. He was capable, experienced, and responsible, but every interview felt like fog. The words would not come clean. His confidence had not vanished. His sharpness had been buried under pressure. After using the Genius Song for 11 days, something shifted. He did not describe it as a dramatic lightning strike. He described it as his mind finally coming back online. Soon after, he received an offer better than the role he had lost, and he said the difference was not only on his resume, it was inside his head. That story matters because some of you are not lazy. You are not unqualified. You are not cursed. You have been trying to make divine decisions through a mind trained by pressure, and pressure has been stealing the clarity your next season requires. Maybe you have tried meditation apps. Maybe you have paid around $15 a month and still felt scattered. Maybe you have looked at online growth courses for $100 to $200, or retreats that cost $400 to $800, or therapy sessions around $150 each. Those things may help some people, but most of them do not specifically target gamma reactivation. Even professional biofeedback can cost around $300 a session, and it often requires repeated visits. The Genius Song was created as a simple daily audio track, 7 minutes through headphones, without complicated rituals or expensive equipment. The original price is $49. For viewers of this message, it is available for $39 as a one-time access. No monthly subscription, no shipping, no waiting for a package. It is delivered digitally, so you can begin listening when you receive it. And the value does not stop with the audio. It also comes with 4 bonuses worth $80 in total. Genius Child is valued at $19. The classic book is valued at $20. Guided visualization is valued at $29. The 5-habit infographic is valued at $12. So you are not only receiving the 7-minute audio track, you are also receiving tools that support focus, visualization, practical daily rhythm, and a deeper understanding of prosperity principles. The total bonus value is $80. Yet the access for this video audience is $39. More than 18,366 people have used it, and what stands out is not only the number of users. The stronger trust signal is that less than 4% requested refunds, which means the overwhelming majority continued with it after they had time to experience it for themselves. And still, you are protected. There is a 90-day money-back guarantee. No conditions, no strange process. If you decide it is not for you, you can request a full refund. And because the bonuses are digital, you keep all 4 bonuses worth $80, even if you receive your money back. That matters because this should not feel like pressure. It should feel like a door. The only real question is not whether fear can argue against $39. Fear can argue against anything. The real question is whether your spirit recognizes that clarity is part of the provision you have been praying for. There is also something important you need to know. Counterfeit versions and fake pages exist. Some people use the name, but do not have the real brain entrainment technology behind the audio. They are only ordinary sounds wrapped in familiar language, and they do not include the proper bonuses or protection. Do not search for it on Amazon. Do not search for it on YouTube. Do not search for it on Spotify. The verified source is only through the link in the description and the pinned comment of this video. That is where the original track, bonuses, and guarantee are connected together. Now pause for a moment. Take one slow breath. Place your hand over your chest if you can. Let your body know that this is not a panic decision. This is not about proving anything to anyone. This is about whether you still believe you were made to hear clearly and move with God. If the answer inside you is yes, the verified link is waiting in the description and in the pinned comment. Do not turn this into a fight with fear. Step through only if your spirit recognizes the invitation, because this is not about chasing money. This is about becoming clear enough to receive what heaven already assigned. And now that the door has been shown, do not leave before the seal. Provision that is revealed must also be spoken over. In the next part, we are going to close the old agreement with lack, silence the voice of worry, and declare over your life that what God has funded will not be stolen by fear. Chosen one, stay here for the seal. Do not leave your spirit open after receiving a word this direct. When heaven exposes fear, you must answer with agreement. Not agreement with panic, not agreement with lack. Agreement with the truth that God has already moved before your eyes could measure it. Take a slow breath. Let your shoulders drop. Let the tight place in your chest soften. You have been carrying tomorrow before tomorrow arrived, and that burden was never assigned to you by the Father. Responsibility is holy, but torment is not. This is the moment where you stop negotiating with worry. You do not need to argue with every fearful thought. You do not need to prove to lack that God is faithful. You only need to remove your agreement from the voice that trained you to expect disaster. Say this from your spirit. I release the fear that has been speaking over my provision. I release the panic that made me misread open doors. I release the old survival pattern that made me believe I had to carry everything alone. I return my trust to God. Say this again. I am not funded by fear. I am not guided by pressure. I am not ruled by delay. I am not abandoned in the middle of my assignment. Heaven knows my name. Heaven knows my need. And heaven has already prepared the way. Let that settle. You are not just repeating words. You are breaking agreement with the inner storm. You are telling your nervous system that fear is no longer the lord of your decisions. You are telling your spirit to rise above the noise and listen for the clean instruction of God. Chosen one, let this truth enter the places where fear has been sleeping. God is not confused about your rent. God is not confused about your debt. God is not confused about your family, your calling, or the quiet need you have not told anyone. He saw the nights you tried to calculate a miracle. He saw the mornings you smiled while your stomach carried questions. He saw the moments when you almost gave up on believing that your life could ever feel supported. And still, heaven did not remove your name from the promise. You are still covered. You are still guided. You are still being prepared. You are still carrying an assignment that requires provision. And God does not assign what he refuses to sustain. The season of begging fear for permission is over. The season of listening clearly has begun. Now speak over your life. I receive the provision that belongs to my assignment. I receive the wisdom to steward it well. I receive the clarity to recognize the right door. I receive the courage to reject every counterfeit door that comes wrapped in pressure. I receive the peace that lets me move without panic. I receive the timing that keeps me from forcing what God has not breathed on. I receive the strength to obey small instructions, because small instructions often carry large breakthroughs when heaven is behind them. No more worshipping the number. No more letting a balance define my identity. No more letting deadlines speak louder than the Father. No more letting past disappointment decide what I am allowed to expect. I am not a child of lack. I am a vessel of divine provision. Now listen carefully. This does not mean you stop being wise. It means wisdom is no longer mixed with torment. It means planning becomes peaceful. It means preparation becomes clean. It means you can look at responsibility without collapsing under the lie that you are alone. This is how chosen ones move. They do not chase every noise. They do not bow to every threat. They do not treat panic as prophecy. They stand still long enough to hear. Then they move when the instruction carries peace. That is why the enemy fought your peace so hard. He was not only after your emotions, he was after your perception. If he could keep you frantic, he could make you miss the person, the idea, the timing, the tool, the correction, or the open door God placed near you. But today, the fog is lifting. Not because every question has an instant answer, not because every responsibility disappeared. The fog is lifting because you can finally see the difference between pressure and guidance, between fear and discernment, between a counterfeit urgency and a holy instruction. Place your hand over your chest if you can. Speak this slowly. I am safe in the hands of God. I am not late. I am not forgotten. I am not outside the provision of heaven. I will hear clearly. I will move wisely. I will receive what has been assigned. Now declare this with authority. What God has funded will not be stolen by fear. What heaven has opened will not be closed by panic. What has been assigned to my life will reach me in the way God chooses, at the time God appoints, through the channel God has prepared. Let every spirit of lack lose its voice in your mind. Let every false prophecy of failure fall to the ground. Let every memory of disappointment lose its power to define your future. Let your home come back under peace. Let your hands stop shaking. Let your breath become steady again. You are not leaving this message the same way you entered it. You came in carrying pressure, but you are leaving with alignment. You came in looking for proof, but you are leaving with instruction. You came in afraid of shortage, but you are leaving aware that heaven has already begun. And if this word confirmed what your spirit already knew, do not ignore the practical door that was shown to you. The verified link remains in the description and pinned comment. Step through only if peace is pulling you. Let clarity lead. Use the tool if your spirit recognizes it. Pray before you listen. Put on your headphones. Give those 7 minutes to stillness, not as a replacement for God, but as a simple return to clarity. If you do nothing else today, stop feeding the panic story. Stop rehearsing the worst ending. Stop speaking as if lack has the final word. Your words matter in this season, because your mouth has been trained by pain, and now it must be trained by promise. So type this declaration in the comments. Provision is already moving, not as empty words, not as performance. Type it as a witness against the fear that tried to own your future. Type it as a seed of agreement with the God who never needed panic to provide. If this message carried weight in your spirit, subscribe and stay close to this channel, not for entertainment, for alignment, for reminders, for the kind of words that interrupt the old cycle before it can rebuild a throne in your mind. And now receive this closing blessing. May your mind become quiet enough to hear. May your spirit become strong enough to obey. May your hands stop trembling over what heaven has already covered. May the right doors open without confusion, and may the wrong doors close without grief. Chosen one, stop worrying. It is already done. Not because circumstances are your savior, not because money is your God. It is already done because the Father has not abandoned the assignment he placed on your life, and what he funds, fear cannot cancel. Walk in peace, listen for the instruction, watch for the door, guard your clarity, steward the provision. And when the old voice tries to rise again, answer it with the truth. God is my source, heaven is my backing, and fear is no longer my guide.